Let me see. We're looking okay. We're good. Okay, so we're back with one of these. Haven't done one of these in a long time. Tips and tricks. I'm gonna try to relay information. I've been on the road for a long time, and especially over the last few years, seen a lot of different types of surfing, surfed a lot of different types of reefs and waves, surfed in a lot of different types of crowds. So I'm gonna do a series on a couple more tips and tricks type of things, spread these out throughout as I'm still chasing and surfing these waves on the slab tour. I realize there's probably a benefit of all this knowledge I have from experiencing all these different aspects of surfing and cultures and reefs and waves that I could probably pass on to some of you and hopefully give you a little shortcut, make you more efficient in your surfing, or just find something you find interesting. I think a good video to start with, probably something we've all dealt with, is catching waves in a crowded lineup. And we'll go over a few different aspects of what that can be like. There's one, it's just your normal break you go to, it's close to home, you kind of know half the people in the lineup, sometimes there's visitors, and kind of know your way around the lineup, you know which waves are probably good and aren't good. We'll go through how to catch more waves in that kind of lineup, but also how to catch waves in a lineup you've just shown up to. And we'll do a crowded version and an uncrowded version. Obviously, if there's nobody out, it's more on the precaution side. Precautions you can take to avoid a scary situation, although solo surfing always is gonna come with a lot more risk. But surfing in a crowd has its own risk as well. Anyway, we'll start with probably the more exciting one, something you guys have spoken about being interested in. So many comments all the time about hierarchy in the lineup, surfing etiquette, crowd etiquette. Why do you get so many waves in that type of lineup? Or I can't catch waves in a crowd, and things like that. So we'll start with how to catch waves in a crowded lineup. Some things to think about as you enter a crowded lineup. That's going to be a lineup you've never been to before. So here's a scenario. You're on your first surf trip and the waves are pumping and you want to go out. It's the place you traveled there to surf. You're going to surf it. It's crowded. You don't really know who's local or non-local. I find myself running into that in certain areas a lot. Say you're in Australia and everyone has an Australian accent, but you could be surfing with a guy who is from that town, or you could be surfing with guys that are from across the country. They're still more local than you, but they may not necessarily be a local of that specific wave in town. So there's like funny dynamics in the interplay of certain crowds when you're not from that country. The same thing goes for Europe or Brazil or Africa. You're more outsider than some of the people that are from that country, but not necessarily from that surf town. So something to think about, like you are in a position of possibly coming into a local crowd that knows the reef like the back of their hand, and they have an internal rotation that they've done and always done, and some have put in their time from little kids to get into that peak. And so the first thing I do when entering a crowded lineup, if it's about 10 people out, I'll try to say hello to everyone and just be friendly. Let them know I'm not some uppity pro coming in thinking I'm going to paddle straight out the back and around everyone and take the first big wave. I just say, hey, everyone. Or individually go up and shake hands with people even. If it's like 10 and under. Anything more than that, and it's just like, it's a little too much. You're going to be shaking a lot of hands. You're going to be drawing like almost too much attention, and it's going to take time. And you're better off just not going there. If people look at you, wave and say hello. But what I find is I don't paddle and sit myself in the center of the pack. I don't paddle and sit myself outside of everybody, even though I can probably go on the next set, like as far as like I can go sit in the position they're sitting and I'm able to catch the wave from there. That doesn't give me a right or reason to do that. And of course it's a new reef for me, so I want to learn it. I've probably watched it from the beach. I got the gist of it just from that. I paddle out, and like I said, if it's 10 or less people, say hello to everyone and immediately move to the inside of the entire pack. And if it's more than 10 people, I'll maybe wave at some people, or I'll just paddle out and sit on the furthest inside of the pack. And for the waves I'm surfing, it's a great strategy because it's usually big open ocean swell sweeping in and hitting a shallow reef. So when that's happening, it's a smaller takeoff area. There'll be some locals sitting on that small, perfect takeoff area, and they're in a rotation among themselves where they're waiting for the best waves. They know what the best wave looks like. They are trading off in a priority between each other. So they are often waiting longer than would normally be the case if you were, say, under priority like me, which any wave that goes under that crowd is free game for me. Nobody's going on it. Nobody's looking at it. There's so many times I've paddled out, and maybe I don't get the best wave of the session because those guys are sitting there and they're doing that and they're waiting for that very specific wave, but I catch 5 times as many waves and have a great session, have a totally fun time because the wave is new to me. Any wave I ride out there is an epic experience. I don't have the years of built up experience at the wave where I feel that I need to be on the best wave of that day, and I even know what the best wave of the day is. Like, I know because that's how I feel at Pipe. I paddle out, I know what it's capable of, and I know there's an internal rotation between that top pecking order out there that I can be a part of. And if I have my turn set out of that 10 or 15 elite level guys, and it comes up and it's my turn, I know I can get a really crazy wave, and I'm just not interested in the inside double ups because I've ridden so many of those. But when I go to a new place, it's like, oh my gosh, I'll ride anything. Like, I'm so excited to be at a new reef and surf a new wave that every wave is exciting to me. And I often find I have a way better time just riding what I can versus being envious and waiting and going, oh, that guy got another good set. He waited a while for it, but damn, those guys are catching every good set. Like, I know that can be frustrating. There's certain waves and certain times where you're just like, damn, like I really wish I could ride one of those sets. If it's like a really localized wave and these guys are just like getting one after another. So I know it can be a bummer, but I accept that that is a part of surfing certain areas. Like, I don't complain about it. I can get frustrated, but I know what that's like, and I know they might have felt that in certain waves themselves, but at that one town where they grew up at, they might be the top dog and catch a lot of waves when the waves are good. The other thing is, I'm willing to paddle out when the wind turns a little bit, but they've surfed it so many times so good that oftentimes they don't surf when the wave's a little bit off. I've found that so many times around the world. You can wait for a window. If you're willing to surf not with the rest of the pack, you can catch a lot of waves, even at the most crowded waves in the world. Uluwatu, I've gone out on the low tide and had sessions alone and had a great time. Obviously, there's the reef and there's other factors and the reason sometimes people aren't surfing, but that brings me to a great point I'd like to make about how the crowds work at certain waves. You have those top locals, if it's that type of wave, catching the good ones. And then you have this funny middle group. They're not like out there waiting and trying to get the best ones, and maybe they're not a part of that 3 or 4 guys that are going to be on every big set, but they're stuck waiting, trying to be a part of it, or they're looking for a wave of the same caliber that might go past those guys, and they end up waiting the most because they're in the main group of a bunch of people looking for the same wave. You want to paddle out. If you're going to surf in a crowd, you want to paddle out and look for a different wave than everyone else's, because otherwise you're going to be competing with 10 other people to catch one wave. And so that's why there's such an advantage of sitting on the inside. It's the same as in a heat. They call it being under priority. You see Gabriel or Itala's really active at it. When they're in priority, they'll wait and they'll get a good one. As soon as they're under priority, they catch like 3 or 4 times as many waves as they would during priority. That other guy's gonna be on the best wave. So they might as well catch as many waves as they can in the hopes that they can get an epic backup score. And as soon as that guy catches that wave, they're back out to priority. But that strategy of just catching a bunch has worked so well for me in free surf sessions and crowded lineup, because I'm just willing to try and try and try. Maybe they're not all the best waves, but once in a while one sneaks under and the whole mid-pack is looking at those guys who don't even look at it. So they're not going to look at it, and it goes under the whole crowd and you get an incredible wave. There's always wide ones on a reef, inside double ups that no one can catch because they're real doubled up like a surge and they're only going to break on the inside. But this doesn't necessarily have to be for some crazy slab. A point break is a great example. There's always a part of a point break where most people don't make it past. There's a barrel section or some flat section or some weird area where everyone goes for their first turn and they fall right there. 50% of the waves are empty beyond that point. I've had super successful sessions at super crowded point breaks in Mexico and other places and J-Bay just by finding that spot on the reef where most of the crowd falls. They're all going to go paddle out. They're all going to take off from out the back and jockey and be in a big nightmare crowd. If you go out there, you always have that feeling of like looking at someone and you think they're going to fall, but you're too close to them to try. You don't want to look like you're trying to burn somebody. And then you look in and they've fallen, you've pulled out, and they've fallen right where you were. And you're like, like I could have ridden that wave. I thought they were going to fall. They rode up until me and then fell. Like there was nothing you could do. But I find that those sessions, like there's often a sticking point on the point breaks where you can catch a lot more waves than everyone because you've found the spot where most of them are falling, and maybe you're not going to get the full top to bottom ride, but to be honest, that's a hard thing to do. And for me, I want wave numbers. I want to catch a lot of waves. I want to go out and surf. So much of surfing is already spent paddling and duck diving and getting ready to surf. The least amount of time is spent on our feet surfing. So it's important for me personally when I go, I want to ride waves. So that being said, you want to be careful with how you're navigating those type of strategies, right? There's certain lineups where nobody cares and certain lineups where nobody's a local. It's crowded and there's people waiting for the best waves of the day, but nobody's local. So there, I take the same strategy, but I'll change it depending on catching waves on the inside and then slowly working into the rotation. If there's no like angry local vibe where you know they're gonna catch every set and it's just not even worth bothering with, if it's a normal group of surfers, everyone's a visitor, but there is some sort of line in the system of people are taking turns going on the sets, depending on the quality of the waves. I'll catch a few waves on the inside, get warmed up, ride a few, and then I'll go sit and I'll do the long wait in the rotation of the working crowd. All crowds are different. You're going to run into extremely localized waves to kind of more mellower, there's a local crowd, but they're chill, to just everyone's a visitor. Everyone's taking turns, and it's up to you if you want to wait in line for that big turn and spend your time, and that wave that comes is worth it to you to wait for, or you want to ride a lot of waves. My strategy when it's a big, non-localized crowd and everyone's taking turns is I'll go and wait for one of the sets after I've ridden a few, and after I've done a fairly long wait or however it is until it's my turn, I'll take the set that comes when it's my turn, and then on the way back out I'll hunt those inside double ups, and maybe I'll spend some time in there catching 3 or 4 more waves if there are double ups sneaking through or wide ones coming in. Like HTs is a good example. I love the double up, and that crowd there is a slight amount of localism. Mostly everyone's cool, but yeah, there can be a long line as people do take turns out there. a long line in the waiting for the big main double up sets. And so sometimes I'll wait in that line, and if a set comes and it's my turn, I'll go, and then on the way back out, I'll sit on the wide bowl and just catch a few waves, or even like right on the surgeon's table and ride waves there to get my wave count up. And that can be repeated most places that have a crowd type like that, where you basically want to just maximize your wave count without pissing anyone off or being disrespectful. You don't want to disrespect a local crowd for one, but you don't want to also just disrespect other surfers. Even if you're all visitors, there's no point in making yourself an enemy of the lineup. And surf etiquette is a real thing. You want to have respect. I'm sure at some point I've probably pissed someone off somewhere. But I like to think it would be accidental. I'm pretty careful about it, and I do wait my turn. And if it's a really localized spot, I'm not like hassling those local guys. I'm doing what I said I did. At some point, you probably will annoy somebody, but better it be on accident and not like you just knowingly being a pig in the water. It goes a long way, and you will find you'll often see people repeatedly if you do travel for surfing. You will see the same people in different areas because they're also traveling for surfing. And so it's important to make good relationships. And I've met a lot of great friends over the years from surfing sessions like that. And not with just other pro surfers, with totally average surfers. I find there is sometimes, as a pro, I don't know how to say it, but you can, I guess like as a pro, sometimes your ability can cloud your judgment, and you think just because you can, you should. And I think that's something I try to be super careful with. Just because I can take off way deeper than you, maybe I shouldn't go paddle around you and do that. I will say though, on that note, if I paddle out to a wave and the biggest, heaviest ones are going unridden continuously, I will probably at some point in the session go and try and get one of those. And sometimes that means me positioning myself in a way that I'm deeper or more outside, or deeper or more inside, or just placing myself where I need to be. But I only really will do that, like paddle deeper than a crowd, or when it's obvious that no one there is willing to go on that bigger, heavier wave that comes in. And that happens all the time. Like, not everyone is chasing the same type of wave I'm chasing. And so sometimes I paddle out and there's the medium ones that everyone wants. And then 3 sets come in a row and I watch none of the guys waiting, and it's their turn and they're up. None of them even look at it. They don't want a piece of it. Totally fine. Better to know your range and know the wave you want than throw yourself over the fall because you feel you don't have the ability or something like that. And so when I do see that and I see, okay, that's 3 sets that I've seen these guys just not even look at, they don't want that wave, then I'll go and make an effort to catch one of those. And usually there's no problems. They're just like, hey, we're not looking to go on that. And so you can have it, but I definitely don't do that off the bat. You want to show that I've taken a look. Okay, I haven't just totally disregarded that and expected you guys not to go. I've seen that you're not gonna go, and so I'm gonna go for it. That's another small kind of dynamic in reading crowds. But I feel like that was a lot of information. This will probably spawn more questions than I gave answers to, but I guess the key points are: surf your own session. Many crowded waves are surfed by 90% of the crowd looking at what 10% of the crowd is doing. And so that 10% is probably going to be on the best waves, and the other 90% are watching what they're doing, hoping maybe one will go by them that is of equal caliber that they're waiting for. So it kind of causes a stagnation in that type of lineup, and there's just so many that sneak under all those guys because they're not seeing the main locals look at them, and then they're not looking, and then they're going under, and you have me scavenging on the inside. Now, sometimes this sounds funny, but I have to manipulate that a little bit. Like, I'll paddle out, sit on the inside and go, oh wow, there's so much like coming below this crowd that they are just staring out to sea, waiting for the biggest sets of the day to come, and then watching the 5% guys take every one, but there's so many going below, so I'll just start surfing and catching a lot of waves. And just, if you're a surfer, you're looking around at who's riding waves, it'll draw a crowd in, because they're like, fuck, I'm tired of sitting, I'm gonna go sit there. He's catching all the waves on the inside below us, so that they all move in. I have surfed waves where if it's 10 guys, 5 to 10 guys, wherever I'm catching waves, they might move over to try and surf. Or say I paddle way up the reef and I'm surfing a part of the reef that they don't usually surf, then sometimes they'll come up there because they've seen me ride a few waves, and I'll move back down to the bottom. And so if you make it look fun, you're probably going to get some visitors out of that main crowd. And sometimes it works to your advantage because you move on out, but not always. Those are just like subtleties for sure. Surf your own session. Read the reef and the water and the waves for what you're looking for, and don't base it off of what the mass crowd is doing. I will say it's always good to watch if there is a local crowd. They have the experience, they know the reef, they put the time in. Watch how they move, where they're sitting, what they're doing, because if you get a chance to surf that wave on, maybe it's a little windy but it's still sick, you can kind of see where that main takeoff was and replicate that. It's also good to know where, if they're avoiding things, if they're paddling out a certain way, those are things you want to watch for as well, because they know the best way. But other than that, I tend to paddle out, new wave, new crowd, start on the inside, read the lineup, read the wave, read the crowd, catch some double ups, warm up, get a feel for the wave, kind of base my session off that. I definitely don't paddle out, start at the point, the top of the peak. You wouldn't walk up to a coffee shop and go straight to the front of the line, unless of course it was your coffee shop, which that happens in surfing as well. There's always waves where people are just they grew up there and maybe they deserve to have it. I see a lot of times there's a guy that's been surfing a wave for 50, 60 years, and he has the respect of all the younger guys, and he paddles straight out and he's on the first set, and I don't bag on that. I know many are like, I hate localism, no one owns the water. Yeah, I get it, but sometimes people deserve respect for the time they've put in at certain waves. They should be able to paddle out and get the wave they want. What I mean to say is there's context and there's different ways to surf and read in different countries and different places. Some crowds are heavily localized, some are not. There's a lot of waves around the world, and most of the time there's an empty peak just over that's not as good, but you have a lot more fun because there's a lot of waves. I mean, the ideal situation, even though this is a video about how to catch waves in a crowded lineup, the ideal situation is not surfing with anybody, which brings on its own risk. No one's going to save you if you're hurt. You get that spooky feeling, sharks, that type of thing, and nobody's going to see your epic ride. I mean, I'm blessed in that I usually have someone filming, but surfing alone, even for me, it's not ideal. Better with a buddy or two, and past 3 or 4 starts to be an actual crowd. But yeah, I think I'd rather surf with like 2 or 3, 4 guys than surf alone. It's just more fun, it's safer, and I love to push off of other people, especially if it's like some buddies of mine or someone willing to push on the waves I'm pushing on, then that excites me and I can push myself. But even if it's just average surfers, I love seeing people get waves that they feel are pushing their own limits, even if they're just an average surfer. And I've surfed so many sessions around the world where somebody was like, I'm just out there having fun, and they're like, I just got the wave of my life, and I'm like, that's insane. I wish I could reset like my comfortability and tolerance so that I could go out on any old day and like feel that feeling of like the ride of your life. Like, it's just, when you see someone else get that feeling, I get so fired up because I'm like, I know what it means to feel like, wow, that was the best ride I've ever had. And anyone can have that ride at any level. So everyone's enjoying surfing, beginner, average, or pro. And yeah, everyone has to deal with crowds now because everywhere is pretty crowded. But you can be that angry, pissed off guy in the crowd, or you can be the guy sneaking around the inside, catching a lot of waves and having a hell time. Or you're the local and you're on every set and you're having a hell time too. So a lot of ways to be a surfer. That's it for today. Hopefully that helped you guys in some way, and hopefully your next crowded surf, you sneak around and get some waves and don't piss anyone off and have a good time. Any questions, drop them in the comments.